All right, I get a lot of things wrong on this show. You know that. I get a lot of things wrong. But I told you this budget, as hateful and destructive as it is, I told you it would pass. I did. The Republicans have the trifecta. They control the White House and both chambers of Congress, and they always take advantage of trifectas. They claim a mandate when there is none. Both W. Bush, and Trump lost the popular vote in 2000 and 2016. They declared they had a mandate. They did have a trifecta, and they used it. They used their trifecta as a mandate to pass massive tax cuts for the richest 1%, jacking up our debt. When you have the trifecta, you use it. Now, Biden had a trifecta in 2021. He used it. He did. But he could have reversed the Trump tax cuts. He didn't. When he was running last year, he promised to let the Trump tax cuts expire at the end of 2025. But he could have, in 2021, they control through reconciliation. You had the trifecta. The Democrats could have zeroed out the 2017 tax cuts for the richest 1%. They didn't. This is the problem when you have a party that answers to Mark Cuban instead of Bernie Sanders and AOC. I know. Manchin and Sinema. I know. It's hard. It always is hard, especially when you have inadequate people running the Democratic Party. When you have millionaires, billionaires running the Democratic Party, they have no skin in the game. This is the mop-up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. On today's show, Donald Trump signs the 2026 budget bill into law on July 4th, plus late-breaking new evidence that Donald Trump brought Mar-a-Lago bedbugs into the White House. Take a look at this. This is actual artificial intelligence that I made. This is real artificial intelligence of Donald Trump in the White House with Mar-a-Lago bedbugs. This is honest-to-God artificial intelligence. That is real artificial intelligence. Is that fake? Yes, it's fake. But I got tricked again. I thought it was real. I fell for it again. I ran this picture through artificial intelligence software to make it look like Donald Trump is covered in bed bugs. And then I fell for it. This is honest to good artificial intelligence. This is actual, truthful artificial intelligence of Donald Trump scratching bed bugs off his buff body. Okay, I'm going to get to the budget in a second, but this is how I cope. I do lab-grown meat, and we have a message from my lab-grown meat has a message, then we'll get back to the show.
And now we return to America's 400,000 and 353rd most popular podcast in the category of moderately left of center. Please welcome David Ferdman.
That's Tessie, my lab-grown meat. Doesn't she look delicious? I cannot wait to put her in the frying pan. By the way, it's Feldman, not Ferdman. Okay, this is how I cope. Let's go. The Republican-controlled House barreled through passage of Donald Trump's signature piece of legislation, one big, beautiful bill, the 2026 budget bill, by a vote of 2018 to 214. Only two Republicans voted against it, Kentucky's Thomas Massie and Pennsylvania's Brian Fitzpatrick. The Freedom Caucus, the fiscal conservatives, all voted for it. Remember Chip Roy giving those speeches in the House? We have nothing to run on. We're racking up debt. And he's screaming at the Republican. He voted for it. Ralph Norman voted for it. The chairman of the Freedom Caucus Mr. Conservative, Mr. Fiscal Conservative, Andy Harris of Maryland, voted in favor of increasing the national debt. He voted in favor of raising the debt ceiling by $5 trillion in order to give the wealthiest 1% a tax cut. The Freedom Caucus, completely full of crap, but you knew that. You knew that. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez calling passage of this budget bill, which includes the most severe cuts to our social safety net in American history. She calls it, quote, a sad day for America. Before the vote, she said this.
President Trump had issued some statements throughout this process saying and urging, insisting that this bill does not cut Medicaid. He's also said some things, he says he doesn't think I'm too much of a smart person. And I'll tell you one thing. It doesn't take a smart person to know if you're being lied to. All right. President Trump, you're either being lied to or you are lying to the American people. Because this bill represents, in the text of this bill, the largest and greatest loss of health care in American history. 17 million Americans will lose their health care on this bill, not undocumented people, not quote unquote the disgusting term illegal, but 17 million Americans will have their health care cut from this bill.
White House press spokesperson liar Carolyn Leavitt said Trump will sign the bill on Friday, adding, she said, this new bill brings, quote unquote, fiscal sanity to government. This bill, fiscal sanity, this bill raises the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. It tacks $3.5 trillion to our national debt that we know of. The bill cuts Medicaid by $1 trillion over the next 10 years. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates at least 12 million Americans will be thrown off Medicaid, while an additional 5 to 6 million Americans will be unable to afford Obamacare, meaning this bill brings close to 18 million Americans on the brink of losing health insurance over the next 10 years. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that 5 million Americans will no longer qualify for food stamps, but it will make Donald Trump's $4.5 trillion tax cut for the richest 1% permanent. And that necessitates the debt ceiling being raised by $5 trillion. Caroline Leavitt calls this fiscal sanity. Republicans are defending this $1 trillion cut to Medicaid, claiming, oh, don't worry, American citizens won't suffer. They're just cracking down on undocumented immigrants. That is an effing lie. Here is Massachusetts House Democrat Jim McGovern speaking truth to the lie that this $1 trillion cut in Medicaid only targets undocumented immigrants.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if the gentleman's ever read the Medicaid statute, but undocumented immigrants are not entitled to receive Medicaid benefits, and they don't. And our solution to make sure that our children are not saddled with debt is to not give billionaires and millionaires and corporations big tax cuts. Jeff Bezos doesn't need a tax cut. And why don't you come down here and explain to people why it's so important that you protect his tax cuts? We tried to go after the billionaire tax cuts in the Rules Committee last night, and every single Republican voted no. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to invest in people who need help. We're going to make sure people have health care. We're going to make sure people have food assistance. We're not going to screw them over.
Here is New York State House Democrat Josh Riley speaking out against the bill right before it was passed.
We've kept our heads down, we've kept our sleeves rolled up, we've kept our shoulder to the wheel, and all we've asked for is a fair shot and for this place to stop screwing us over. But you can't help yourselves. You got us into terrible trade deals that made Wall Street rich and shipped all of our jobs overseas. You bail out the banks while neglecting rural America. You rigged the economy so the corporate PACs that are funding your campaigns make huge profits, jacking up costs on folks who can't afford it. And now this bill will kill good blue-collar manufacturing jobs that we need to rebuild the economy in this country. It closes rural hospitals, it defunds health care, all to give trillions of dollars in tax cuts to your cronies. Don't tell me you give a shit about the middle class when all you're doing is shitting on the middle class.
Good job.
Chair would remind both sides of two things. Please direct your remarks to the chair. That is a House rule, and to avoid vulgar speak. We do have families in the gentleman will not be recognized. Young lady from North Carolina. Young lady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for reminding us of the language we should be using in this chamber, and I reserve.
That is House Republican Virginia Foxx. She represents North Carolina's 5th Congressional District, and she's offended by the language. Not the language in the bill that throws millions of Americans off food stamps and Medicaid. She just doesn't like nasty words. Nasty deeds, oh, she's fine with, so long as you don't question her Christian faith. See, people get upset when you call them on their bullshit, especially people like Virginia Foxx, who purports to be a Christian, but she just helped pass a bill that is the complete opposite of everything Jesus wants. Virginia Foxx also serves as chairwoman of the very important Rules Committee. Bills can't get introduced before the House unless they pass through her Rules Committee. Normally, unless it's a privileged resolution, but through regular order, it can't get a bill can't get to the House unless it first goes through her. She runs the Rules Committee. So before Thursday's big vote in the House, the Rules Committee met for 12 hours and heard challenges to certain amendments to this 2026 budget bill. And it was during those hearings that Virginia Foxx took umbrage to her being her Christianity, her pro-gun, war on the poor Christianity being challenged. You know, you get called on your bullshit, you call yourself a Christian, you get really upset when somebody calls you on your bullshit. And that somebody was Democrat Maxwell Frost. He offended Virginia Foxx by speaking the truth. Here he is serving, by the way, he's a first-term, he's a freshman in the House of Representatives. He represents Florida's 10th Congressional District. I think it's the 10th. Frost is 28, and he testified before Virginia Foxx's Rules Committee speaking out against a proposed amendment in the 2026 budget bill that would remove a $200 tax on silencers for guns. Here he is offending Virginia Foxx in front of this turd, Georgia House Republican Andrew Clyde. This turd owns Clyde Armory, one of our nation's largest gun stores, where Congressman Clyde, who is a turd, makes millions selling guns and ammo while serving in Congress. Congressman Clyde, turd, introduced this amendment to the budget bill that would remove the $200 tax on silencers. Here is Congressman Maxwell Frost challenging the amendment. I should point out, Congressman Frost is black. Virginia Foxx is white. Notice the white North Carolinian's tone of voice talking to the black congressman.
Yeah, see, they say they're pro-life because they want the baby to be born, go to school, and get shot in the school. Die in the school, die on the streets. No. That is what they say.
Hey, I'm not going to say anything. And you've gone over the cliff.
I moved to strike his word over the cliff.
You've gone over. We were going to be quiet, but you've gone over now.
I meant every word.
We are going to strike your words. But on the other hand, it might be good to leave your words. Might be good to leave your words. Because that's how you feel. But you are not going to come into this room and impugn our integrity. You will not. We are pro-life people from conception to natural death. Most of us are. And don't you come in here and say, we want to preserve life so people can get shot.
That's what I've seen.
Thank you. And then she has to speak to the manager. I just was stunned by that. Just amazing. The amendment went down to defeat. Unbelievable. Well, the New Republic reporting that Trump succeeded in winning over Republican holdouts, Freedom Caucus members, the fiscal conservatives. How did he do it? By inviting them to the White House for photo ops and merch. Tennessee House Republican Tim Burchett, remember this guy? Kevin McCarthy kidney punched him while Burchett was doing an interview with NPR. Kevin McCarthy hates this guy because Tim Burchett never saw a bank of microphones that didn't make him hard. He loves talking and wringing his hands and saying, I don't know if I'm going to vote for this or not. And then he votes for it. Anyway, Tim Burchett complained the budget was fiscally irresponsible. Then he met with Trump and came out of the White House meeting all starry-eyed, telling reporters, I'm voting for the bill, adding, quote, the president was wonderful, as always, informative, funny. He told me he liked seeing me on TV, which was kind of cool. What are you, 12? Burchett then said, yeah, and he signed a bunch of stuff for me. It's cool. He gave them merch. Senator Elizabeth Warren took to Twitter mocking Burchett with, quote, last night a bunch of Republicans in the House were saying how awful this bill was. It only took a couple hours, some merch, and a few words from Donald Trump, and they're lining up to rip away health care from 17 million Americans. Elizabeth Warren went on to say, I'm sadly not surprised, but I am still outraged. In order to speak out against passage of the 2026 budget bill before the big vote on Thursday, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York City, broke the record for longest speech ever given in the House of Representatives. He said, the House of Representatives is now a crime scene and described this budget bill as an assault on Americans' health care. He estimated 51,000 Americans will die each year from this bill alone. House Republican from New York, Elise Stefanik, returned to Congress Thursday to cast her vote. Hasn't been there for a while. Stefanik was originally Trump's nominee for UN ambassador until he pulled it from her at the last minute. Stefanik had already moved out of her congressional office and was planning to use her position as UN ambassador as a way to leapfrog to run for governor of New York. So she rarely comes back to Washington, D.C. She moved out of her office. She's still a congresswoman from New York State, but she doesn't go to Congress anymore. She hates Speaker Mike Johnson. She calls him an inveterate liar because he screwed her out of the UN job. He also screwed her out of her House leadership position that she gave up thinking she was about to become UN ambassador, which isn't going to happen. So she's pissed off. She's a Harvard graduate, married to a gun lobbyist. So my heart is bleeding for Elise Stefanik, who came to Washington to cast her vote in favor of this bill. During his 8-hour speech, Hakeem Jeffries mocked Stefanik. He welcomed her back to Congress, saying, quote, "I'm sorry it did not work out for you. And that's a lesson that should be learned by all those who pledge loyalty to the wannabe king." House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' speech clocked in at 8 hours and 44 minutes. It started at 5 a.m. Eastern, ended 1:37 p.m. Eastern. He did it in order to delay the final vote on this odious budget. Under House rules, leaders from both parties are granted what is called a magic minute, allowing them to speak for as long as they wish. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called Republicans out on the lie that they have gotten rid of taxes on tips. She explained it's capped at $25,000, which means people who are paid in tips, well, their first $25,000 is tax-free, but then after that, you owe the government. Here she is.
Of tax on tips, as one of the only people in this body who has lived off of tips, I want to tell you a little bit about the scam of that tax, a little bit of the fine print there. The cap on that is $25,000, while you're jacking up taxes on people who make less than $50,000 across the United States, while taking away their SNAP, while taking away their Medicaid, while kicking them off of the I.C.E. and their health care extensions. So if you're at home and you're living off tips, you do the math. Is that worth it to you? Losing all your health care, not able to feed your babies, not being able to put a diaper on their bottom in exchange for what? This bill is a deal with the devil. It explodes our national debt. It militarizes our entire economy, and it strips away health care and basic dignity of the American people for what? To give Elon Musk a tax break and billionaires the greedy taking of our nation. We cannot stand for it, and we will not support it. You should be ashamed.
We are in this mess because Nancy Pelosi didn't embrace AOC. Pelosi kind of talked to AOC the way Virginia Fox talked to Maxwell Frost. My message to the Democratic leadership: embrace AOC or die. Or die. This is the future of the Democratic Party, whether we like it or not. Whether we like it or not. Well, where am I? Yes, back, I'm sorry, I was right the first time. California Governor Gavin Newsome is heading to South Carolina next week for a 2-day swing through the state, talking with voters. Last year, South Carolina was the first primary in the Democratic nominating process. I don't know if it's going to switch back to New Hampshire, being the first. Maybe they'll bring back the Iowa caucuses. The Democratic Party moved it all down to South Carolina, which traditionally is third. Gavin Newsome putting out feelers. I like the guy. You could have introduced single payer in California, Gavin. You didn't. I'll vote for you, but you had a chance for single payer. It passed in the legislature, and you whiffed. This is why we're in the mess we're in. You can't win elections scaring us about Donald Trump, and then when you have power, not do anything with that power. I mean, you did some stuff with not enough. You didn't use your power. Look at this bill. Look at what the Republicans did with what? One vote in the Senate and one vote in the House. All it took was one vote. 2 votes, 1 or 2 votes in the House, 1 vote in the Senate. They have no power. Look what they do with no power. If you want it badly enough, you crack skulls and give the American people Medicare for all. Well, back in his home state of California, the El Rancho Unified School District released new video of several ICE agents urinating against the wall at Salazar High School in broad daylight at 9 a.m. Summer session going on for elementary school students inside the buildings. Los Angeles County Supervisor Jessica Hahn, who represents Pico Rivera, part of California, she issued the following statement, quote, "It's not enough that they've spent weeks violently ambushing people. Now ICE agents are allegedly entering school campuses, pulling down their pants and urinating on playgrounds. It's a slap in the face to our communities, especially to our children. I joined the El Rancho Unified School District in demanding a full federal investigation into this incident," unquote. By the way, I love Gavin Newsome. He has stood up as best he can to ICE and Stephen Miller. So he has my vote. I'm just saying he had a shot at single payer in California and he wouldn't go for it. Former WBC middleweight champion Julio Chavez Jr., who lost Saturday's highly anticipated bout in Anaheim, California to Jake Paul, was apprehended by ICE on Thursday and deported back to Mexico. ICE says Chavez's tourist visa expired 2 years ago. Chavez is married to a U.S. citizen, but the Department of Homeland Security claims she is involved with the Sinaloa drug cartel due to her past relationship with the now deceased son of El Chapo Guzman, who's now serving a life sentence in the United States for drug trafficking. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland migrant granted protected legal status to live in the United States and then accidentally deported to El Salvador by ICE. He was sent to El Salvador's infamous high-security prison. He's now back in a United States prison. His lawyers say while he was being held in that CCOT mega prison in El Salvador, Garcia received severe beatings, was forced to kneel for 24 hours straight, deprived of sleep, food, and subject to psychological torture. Aaron Melnik is senior fellow at the American Immigration Council. Here is what he said about this new 2026 budget bill, the spending on ICE detention facilities. You know, everybody's talking about Medicaid, cuts to Medicaid and food stamps. But one of the most underreported stories about this budget is it's turning us into a police state. It really is. This is what Aaron Melnik wrote. If this bill passes, he wrote this obviously before it did, it could make ICE the nation's largest jailer with more funding for detention than the entire Federal Bureau of Prisons. It would give ICE enough money to have more officers on board than the entire FBI. This alone could transform American society forever. So I'm in a bad mood over this budget. I told you the Republicans were going to pass it. And if you had been listening to me for the past 5 years about abolishing ICE, I warned you, go back and listen to my shows. I said ICE will be the palace guard for any president who has ambitions to turn America into a genuine police state. I warned you about this. I said ICE is folded into the Department of Homeland Security, which means it answers only to the President of the United States. I said this has all the makings of the SS, the Gestapo. I warned you. I said we have to abolish ICE. You know, I get a lot of things wrong, okay? I said Harris was going to, the worst case scenario, Mug. I get a lot of things wrong. But I told you that we had to abolish ICE. Kamala Harris, before she ran for president in 2020, said we need to reevaluate whether or not we need ICE. David Hogg, right? The big young gun who just left the Democratic Party. Before he went to Harvard, he was saying abolish ICE. Suddenly, they get a taste of power, and it's complicated. Abolishing ICE, I mean, this is the Gestapo. Now, this is the Gestapo. Here is a graph. I want you to look at this. Can you see this? Yes. This is a graph from Dan Moynihan, who writes over at Substack. He has a new piece about the massive new funding for ICE entitled How the Reconciliation Bill Would Change America. Well, he wrote this as a warning. He didn't actually think this reconciliation bill would get passed with this kind of funding for ICE. This is a pie graph of 2025 funding for ICE. Look at that. So the big chunk, and I'm colorblind, so I think that's dark blue, that is ICE, border security, $34 billion. Look what the FBI gets, $4.2 billion. Secret Service, $3.1 billion. DEA, $2.5 billion. The Department of Justice, $2.5 billion. Department of Homeland Security, $1.7 billion. And the ATF, $1.6 billion. Look how much money is allocated to ICE when it comes to law enforcement for 2025. It's going to get worse. It's about to get worse. ICE just got like a 300% bump for 2026. Is that what it is? Yeah. The Nation magazine reporting that ICE will get $45 billion to spend over the next 4 years to build out its capacity to hold as many as 100,000 inmates. Although the Cato Institute says it's going to be 200,000 inmates. And the Cato Institute is a conservative think tank funded by the Koch brothers. So this $450 billion will be handed over to the for-profit detention corporations Geo Group and CoreCivic. And according to the Nation, that $45 billion bump that's going right to the for-profit prison. Oh, damn it. I have automatic tracking. I can't. Oh, what happened? If I gesticulate, this is what AI does. What are you doing? Oh, stop or back to normal. It won't go back to normal. Hang on. Sorry. All right, let's see. Did I do it? Wouldn't it have been great if I had people tied up? Like I was doing this from my mother's basement, and it was like a little abattoir, and I had people gagged and tied. The camera. Okay. That would have been funny. When things get better, I'm going to do that. Is the camera moving? You know what? F me. F me. I'm angry. Everybody gets to have a good podcast where nothing goes wrong. And I got to look at this now to calm down. Excuse me, I'm upset. That's Donald. That is an actual AI video of Donald Trump covered in bed bugs from Mar-a-Lago. That is AI, actual, honest-to-God AI. And it calms me down. Where was I? Sorry. Is anybody still here? And if so, why? What was I talking about? Something I care very much about. Hang on, we have a message. Got to bring the show back.
And now we return to America's 400,000 and 353rd most popular podcast in the category of moderately left of center. Please welcome David Ferdman.
That's my meat talking, my lab-grown meat. Tess, cannot wait to fry her up. I do that in my basement. What was I talking about? Okay. ICE getting $45 billion to hold as many as 100,000 inmates. And I'm keeping my hands down. And it could be 200,000 inmates. If I didn't do this show, this is becoming a police state, a prison state. I mean, it already is. We already have 2.2 million people behind bars. Now you got the Gestapo, ICE, able to do it with no due process. This $45 billion will be handed over to the for-profit detention corporations, GEO Group and CoreCivic. And according to The Nation, this $45 billion increase on top of what ICE is already getting. This is $45 billion just to build out the detention facilities. That is more than the combined budgets for the prison systems in all 50 states. So we can keep 2.2 million Americans behind bars. But the for-profit prison companies, CoreCivic and GEO Group, need $45 billion to house 200,000. See how that works? They were the big donors. To Donald Trump last year. And their stock, after he won, soared 60-70% immediately after. So who do you think Tom Homan, the border czar, is going to be working for after he leaves government? He just got $45 billion delivered to CoreCivic and GEO Group. Where do you think he's going to go work? The Nation says the Federal Bureau of Prisons spends $8.3 billion a year to house its prisoners. ICE is getting a $45 billion, keep your hands down, ICE is getting a $45 billion bump just to build more prisons. 45, so that's more to house 200,000 migrants. It costs $45 billion to house 200,000 migrants. That's more than it costs to house 2.2 million Americans who should not be behind bars either. This is a prison state. We've always been a police state. If you're not white, this is a police state. And now you got ICE that doesn't have to obey due process. That's this 2026 budget bill. And nobody's talking about this. And everything is falling apart. Hey, I'm wearing no pants and no underwear. So enjoy. I got to take a vacation. What's going on? You mother of Jesus Christ, mother. Hang on. You know, if I wanted, I'm sorry I wasn't wearing any underwear or pants. By the way, if I really wanted to be a success, you know, like on TikTok or YouTube or Twitch, they're just a baby boomer having tech problems is pornography for Gen Z. Just watching an old guy trying to stay relevant. What's happening right now, Gen Zers, Maxwell Frost, makes them hard watching an old man in the death throes of his career trying to get the technology to work. I'm sorry I wasn't wearing any pants or underwear. Sorry, I got to go back and look at this. I focus. I need this to focus. Yes, Yes, I'm mentally ill, and I need to look at Donald Trump scraping bed bugs from Mar-a-Lago off his body. This is what calms me down. This makes me happy. Makes me less. That is actual artificial intelligence. Genuine, 100% true and accurate artificial intelligence of that turd, Donald Trump. Okay, I should wrap it up. Tess?
And now we return to America's 400,000 and 353rd most popular podcast in the category of moderately left of center. Please welcome David Ferdman.
Thank you, Tess. That is my lab-grown meat. So they're turning $45 billion over to in the bill, the budget bill, $45 billion for for-profit prisons, concentration camps. Where where to save money, they offer, I'm not making this up, an extra bowl of soup to the inmates if they're willing to do janitorial work. This is this is the same bill that cut Medicaid by 20%, food stamps by 15%. But there's money for GEO Group and CoreCivic. $45 billion for GEO Group and CoreCivic to boost their stock price. The Cato Institute, funded by the Koch brothers, reports that this year border enforcement accounts for 2/3 of our nation's entire law enforcement budget. That's this year. Cato estimates 25% of the entire 2026 budget will be spent on mass deportations, which Trump is promising to come in at 1 million a year. And they're doing 3,000 a day now. They're doing 3,000 a day. The Cato Institute says the new bill calls for the hiring of 10,000 new ICE agents with signing bonuses of $10,000 each. Cato estimates that the spending bill sets the stage for ICE being able to detain 200,000 migrants at one time in for-profit detention centers. It'll take about 3 years. 200,000 migrants at one time. Remember the loophole in the 13th Amendment? This is slavery, slave labor. Right now, ICE's official detention capacity is under 40,000. We can only handle 40,000 migrants detained. You get past that, it's a crime against humanity. We're currently holding 57,000 migrants in overcrowded cells, many of them, the migrants getting one meal a day with no beds, no soap, no showers, no drinkable water, diabetics on the floor writhing without insulin. At least 10 migrants this year have died in these for-profit ICE detention facilities. And as I said, there's no money for Medicaid or food stamps. No soap, water, beds for the migrants, yet stock in CoreCivic and GEO Group has increased by nearly 60% since Donald Trump was elected in November. Well, here's the good news. Here's the good news. This bill can be reversed. That's the good news. This bill, all of it, can be reversed. None of this is permanent. A lot of stuff that got passed by Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act now being rescinded by this budget. A lot can happen in a year. A lot of these cuts don't go into effect until after the midterms. So, good news. Good news. This budget bill has passed, but it's still a blueprint unless, it doesn't become permanent unless we don't win. It will become permanent unless we don't win the midterms. That's how it works. That's how it works. So we have to win the midterms. That's how it works. I don't want to get into. So it's not over. It's not over. Are you going to fight for your country? Are you going to fight for the people who are going to suffer the most from this bill? Are you? Mom Donnie, Mom Donnie, Mom Donnie. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Don't give in. Don't give in to these. They're sick, demented, hateful, impotent, dry men and women. Don't give in to them. Fight them. Register to vote. The Democratic Party caused this, but there are only hope. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room for keeping the conversation civil. Please leave a comment if I got anything wrong. God, I know that AI is going to put everybody out of work and end up killing us, but boy, this really makes me happy. It really does. I can just look at that all day. Hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my newsletter, do all the things. Happy July 4th. Happy July 4th. I'll see everybody probably in 2 days. Be safe.